If everyone would take your seat, we will call the sixth meeting of the House Education Committee in order. And also I want to remind everyone to please silence or put your phone on vibrate in order to avoid interruptions. I have already discussed with the large majority of the audience that if you're here to speak on Senate Bill 83, an act relating to athletics, we have already discussed that in detail in both the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee. I'm going to ask the members to also just ask questions of clarification, since this is a after-hours meeting and we have other meetings going on. I don't want to take up the members' time, and I think that everyone that was here prior to this had the opportunity to speak in both of those committees. So I just wanted to share that quickly so you will understand that that is the decision of the chair. So if you want to stay, we welcome you, but if you would like to go, I just wanted to make that clarification. So when Senate Bill 83 is called, we would just call the sponsors up. Do we have any remote? Okay. Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker.
Present.
Representative Banta.
Present in the room.
Representative Bojanowski.
Present in the room, but not paying attention.
Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Donahue. Representative Dossett.
Present.
Representative Hart. Representative Koenig. Representative Lewis.
Present.
Representative Massey. You're in the room. Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Miller. Here. Representative Gibbons Prunty.
Here in the room.
Representative Rayburn.
Here.
Representative Scott. Present. Representative Timoney.
Here.
Representative Tipton.
Present in the room.
Representative Weber. Representative White. Representative Wilner.
Here in the room.
Vice Chair Riley. Chair Huff.
Present. We have a quorum. We do have a quorum and duly constituted to do business. The first bill for consideration today will be House Bill 277, an act relating to teachers and to make an appropriation thereof. If the sponsor would please come to the table with your guest, introduce yourselves, make sure your mic is turned on, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate you taking time and looking at this bill. I am State Representative Walker Thomas, representing District 8, and I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
I'm Beverly Fort, teacher recruiter from Christian County Public Schools.
I'm Melanie Barrett, Director of Pupil Personnel, Christian County Public Schools.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chairman, I'm sorry. I almost promoted you.
Go right ahead.
All right. Well, this bill came about, worked with Beverly Fort and some others, some people down at Murray State University. And what we're trying to do is trying to give the elements to be able to get more teachers in the classroom. We all know that we have a shortage. There are quite a few districts that are operating on emergency certifications right now. With COVID, it's even worse, and trying to find employees makes it even worse. So what I need to do, the first one that you have in front of us, this does have a committee sub. The first one, actually what we did is we put in elements to kind of grow your own teachers, and it had loan forgiveness. Now we put in all the elements in there, but we did not fund it, so it did not have an AR&R note. There was some questions about it, so the committee sub takes out that part of it. It was where teachers could teach in your local community for up to 4 years and get $10,000 back each year towards their tuition, but we did sub that out. And so, Madam Chair, if we could have a motion on the sub, that'd be great.
Motion on the sub. Second.
We have a motion on the sub by Representative Gibbons Prunty, a second by Representative Tipton. All in favor? All opposed? Committee sub is adopted. Proceed.
All right, thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Fort.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today with you. as Representative Thomas has invited me today. I am the teacher recruiter for Christian County Public Schools. I have been in education for 29 years, and in all the roles that I have had and served in my career, I know my why. It has always been about the kids. In my current role as teacher recruiter, I know our best resource is our people, is our teachers. I work for a superintendent who shares the same vision, and we know that our students deserve the best people in front of them every day. All of you here today also are invested in education, and I thank you for your service. We are all aware of the shortages of teachers. This bill hopes to address this need with a new initiative or an option towards teacher certification. Creating a grower-owned teacher residency program will allow a teacher pipeline to produce new teachers. This new option is still going to be rigorous. It's still going to require passing of the praxis, a partnership with an accredited university, all the while these candidates are working alongside a master teacher to gain valuable and extensive training and opportunities to teach. In the county where I work, in Christian County, we have a neighboring county and state that has this program, a teacher residency program. It's very successful. Paraprofessionals would be employed by our district as full-time employees while participating in an accelerated program while getting that extensive job opportunities. It's a challenging time as a teacher recruiter right now because all of us are recruiting those students that are getting ready to graduate for positions this coming school year. This bill could be a game changer for our districts and our district who is interested in a grower-own. For us, we want this pipeline to recruit people who live in our community, who know our kids, who know the community that we serve. We have Murray State as our partner, and we know that this is a sound investment. I know my why. It's the students in Christian County. They need me to find the very best teachers that they get to see that look like them and that can lead them to be and invest in them to be the best version of themselves. This option 9, this new bill, could afford the opportunity to change our community, make a difference for our kids, and help address the teacher shortage. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Motion on the bill.
thank you. We'll be glad to answer any questions if anyone has any.
We do have a motion on the bill by Representative Dossett and a second by Representative Timoney. We do have a couple of questions, though. Representative Bojanowski.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank the sponsor for being very reflective of concerns that I've brought up, particularly those that were raised by the Council for Post-Secondary Education. The question, may I ask a question, I guess?
Yes, you may.
Okay. The question I have is, why are we focusing just on the lower socioeconomic status students? In that, will that lead to sometimes our children who are the most needy potentially having the least trained teachers?
Representative Bojanowski, thank you for that question. Some of the elements in here, and we were just kind of noticing that before the sub was adopted, we were trying to set some parameters to make it where the funding wouldn't be so liquidated between so many schools across the whole country, or a whole state, I'm sorry. So that was why we put parameters of the 5% emergency certification or above, and then also the 65% free and reduced lunch. I would love to work with you on a floor amendment. Since we took that element out, it's not needed as much because each county would still have to work with that school in that area to be able to come up with those parameters anyway. So even though it's still in the sub, I would be interested in maybe working with you on an amendment or something like that that maybe opens it up to more counties.
Thank you. May I make a brief comment?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so yes, teacher retention, recruitment, and definitely teacher respect are 3 areas that I'm working on, and grow your own is a very important recruitment strategy. So I thank you, and I will be in touch.
Thank you. Representative Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some comments. We need this bill, and we need more teachers. Teachers have got it rough now, and there's a lot of people out there with 50-plus hours and are able to and really want to make full-time teachers.
Absolutely.
I have about 3 or 4 people right now that are working on their degree so they can be a teacher. I was in assistant principal for 32 years, and I know how important it is to be a teacher.
Yes, sir.
And I know how important it is to work and get your hours,
Yes.
and we need to help them all we can. I think we have made it really too hard on a lot of them in order to get their degree. But where you really learn, or I think where you really learn about teaching, is once you get there and start doing it. And that's where you learn how to really teach, along with your student teaching. So, Madam Chair, I would just like to say we need this bill, we need to work on this, and we need to bring our teachers on. They've got it rough, and we need these good young teachers coming in,
Yes, sir.
and maybe a few old ones.
Like me.
Thank you. Representative Gibbons-Prunty?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. I just want to acknowledge I have a constituent here at the table, Ms. Barrett, and I remember when we were doing the Hopkins County Retired Teachers Forum, and they were asking what we were going to do about recruiting and retaining, and you brought this idea forward then, and I think it's great that you've brought it to fruition. I had the same questions that Representative Bojanowski had, and I'm glad you're willing to work on that. So thank you. I'll be a yes.
Representative Dossett?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to take a moment to join my good friend, Representative Thomas, and brag on the Christian County School District and those individuals who work there in the district office, who I speak to on a very regular basis. And we were just discussing this upstairs. Things that you see on a daily basis, we don't see because we're not in the field that you're working in. But by you reaching out to us, and I've seen this, and I'm so impressed with our school district, and I've been tremendously impressed with our superintendent there as well, who makes a habit of reaching out to us weekly, something I've never seen before while I've been serving here. And to have the contact with you there as the staff of the district office, it's important for us because one of our goals, and something we have been discussing all through the interim in the conversations I've had with Ms. Fort and with Ms. Barrett, is what we can do to help these new teachers that have come in who did not go into the education field while they were going to college, but have come into the system now, who have discovered that they love education, who are very good teachers, and the things that we can do to help them to want to stay there, because with the process that you're putting forward here, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before we'll have teachers come in line. We've got to make sure we have those faces in the classroom today. And there was something, Ms. Fort, that you mentioned to me that we need to take a look at, and it's concerning the
Emergency certification.
Yes, on extending it for another year of
Absolutely.
what we've done here on the during the pandemic. Would you mind
Absolutely.
explaining, please?
As you know, when you're emergency certified, you're granted 1 year. And then you need to be in an alt-cert program with the university working towards certification. And so you, after the 1 year, if you're not in a program, you have to, unless you're going to have another year of certification, you will not be allowed to teach again until you get into an alt-cert program. And so for some of our teachers that come in, and Oh, yeah. For some of the teachers that come, the emergency certification lasts that 1 year, but they have to take some classes to get in an alt-cert program. The EPSB is allowed for the praxis case that they do not have to take that. So that's a great first step. But having that extra year possible for another year of emergency certification would be very helpful to retain the teachers that we've invested in, that we've mentored this year, would be very helpful.
You have another question?
Just a comment.
Yes,
real quick,
go
okay?
ahead, please.
Once again, I want to thank you both for being here. And Madam Chair, I would like to have a discussion with you on that. If we could do something later before the session's over to extend that 1 year span right there to help these young teachers be able to get that extra time to catch their classes up. So I hope we might be able to do something on that as well. But thank you both. I'm very proud of my school district, of my home Christian County School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dossett, and we will do some collaboration on that. Seeing no other questions, we do have a motion and a second on House Bill 277 as amended by the proposed House substitute. With that, Mariah, if you will, please call the roll.
Representative Baker?
Yes.
Representative Banta?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Donahue? Representative Dossett?
Yes.
Representative Hart?
Yes, and I also like to report that I'm present.
Representative Koenig? Yes. Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massey?
Yes.
Representative McCool?
Yes.
Representative Miller? Representative Gibbons-Prunty?
Yes.
Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Riley?
I'd like to explain my vote. Is it okay?
Proceed.
We are in a situation here in the state of Kentucky where we have a major that major teacher shortage is going to turn into a tsunami soon if things are not done. And I have Representative Lewis and I have suggested some members of leadership that we look into having a task force or working group, whichever is necessary, to look at what we need to do in the state of Kentucky to convince more people to go into the teaching profession, a very honorable profession. And if we don't get something done, the crisis is unimaginable in the state if we don't do something about this. So we've got to come up with whatever means necessary to get more good quality people in our profession. And we've got to look at a lot of different options to do that. We have to get out of a silo and start thinking big picture. So that's been a suggestion that Representative Lewis and I have made, and hopefully we'll be able to get something done about that, and my vote is yes.
Representative Scott?
Thank you, Representative Thomas, for bringing the bill forward. It's a yes.
Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Tipton?
Yes.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative White? Representative Wilner?
Yes, thank you for the bill.
Chair Huff?
Yes. House Bill 277 does have a title amendment. Do you have a motion on the... Motion. I have a motion and second on the title amendment. All in favor? All opposed? Title amendment is adopted. House 277 passes with the expression of opinion that the same should pass with the committee substitute and the title amendment attached thereto. Thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you, members
Appreciate you
and Madam Chair.
Our next bill up for consideration is House Bill 680, an act relating to creating a virtual computer science career academy. If Representative Massey would come to the table as well as your guest, each one please introduce yourself for the record, and then please proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of this committee. Ed Massey, appearing District 66 representative from Boone County.
Alicia Sells, Director of Education and the Ohio Valley Education Cooperative and Manager of Highway Academy.
Sorry. Jeff Smith, Chair of the Chief Information Officer Roundtable in Greater Cincinnati.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to present this bill. The best news about this bill is only 3 pages. The other best piece about the bill is it creates an opportunity for us to explore some opportunities for workforce investment through a career technology virtual academy, working with other school districts and other businesses in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area. But the idea is to actually spread this across the state.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion on the bill by Representative Timoney, a second by Representative Dossett. Would you like to proceed, or would you like us to vote?
I've always learned that if you're winning in trial, you shut up. So I did want to point out, though, that as far as technology goes, I think he is also the technology officer for the Bengals. Is that correct? For the Cincinnati Bengals. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Interesting. Yes, it is. We do have one question by Representative Scott.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm just curious to know, is this a program that already exists, or what's going on here? I'm not clear.
Yes, Representative Scott. This is iLead Academy is a regional career academy in Carrollton. We serve students from 5 rural school districts in Gallatin, Henry, Owen, and Trimble. We were selected as one of 5 high schools in America by the U.S. Department of Education to pilot this program in an effort to expand computer science education opportunities for students in rural communities, and it could also be replicated. I'm a Louisville girl, so in urban communities as well. So we have 18 students right now in the pilot program, and it is underway currently for students in 4 high schools who don't have access to computer science education but for this program.
That's extremely helpful. Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Chairwoman.
Representative Tipton has a question now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate you being here. I've actually had a chance to talk to Mr. Osborne there at Carroll County about this program. Very familiar with iLead, and also OVEX in my region too. So appreciate the good work Mr. Mulholland and the group does there. The ReLead CS, is that part of iLead? Could you explain a little bit about what WeLead CS is?
Yes, I could. So WeLead CS would just be a name for the program in Kentucky. Instead of calling it iLead, we thought WeLead might be a nice way just to brand it so that it is a statewide program. The idea would be that we would have a group of computer science teachers like we have at iLead now, who would be able to teach students computer science career pathway that are in high schools that don't have it. And so just to replicate that across the state, the idea eventually would be, we have actually secured funding from the U.S. Department of Ed for a pilot. We've also applied to the National Science Foundation for funding and to the Economic Development Administration for funding. So the idea would be that we would hope to have funding that would enable school districts to experiment with this and see how it works. And then ultimately the idea would be that they could purchase a seat or several seats for students in lieu of trying to find a computer science teacher, because computer science teachers are impossible to find. And if you look at the fact that the average salary for a computer science job in Kentucky is $72,000 a year, you can sort of see why that would be. It is, I want to point out, not a virtual charter school. It is simply students would take synchronous classes virtually through a Google Classroom, and they would be able to proceed through a 4-year career pathway if they chose to do so.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we've already secured a motion and a second on House Bill 680. Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker?
Yes.
Representative Banta?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
May I briefly explain my vote?
Yes.
Okay, I am going to pass at this point. I want to learn quite a bit more about it, and I know that the sponsor will certainly inform me. Thank you.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Donahue? Representative Dossett?
Yes.
Representative Hart?
Yes.
Representative Koenig? Yes. Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massey?
Yes.
Representative McCool?
Yes.
Representative Miller? Yes. Representative Gibbons-Prunty?
May I make a comment, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I hope we can expand it to other areas of education as well. My vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Riley? Yes. Representative Scott?
Yes.
Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Tipton?
Yes.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative White? Representative Wilner,
Yes.
Chair Huff.
Yes, and I too would like to see an expansion of this program as well. House Bill 680 passes with expression of opinion that the same should pass. Thank you very
Madam
much for your
Chair.
presentation. Our next bill for consideration will be Senate Bill 61, an act relating to early high school graduation. If the sponsor, Senator Wise, please join at the table, and if you have any guests, join you as well. Introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, excuse me, Senate Bill 61 is an act relating to early graduation. It basically is a cleanup bill that takes care of some obsolete statutory requirements for early high school graduation. For early high school graduation. It eliminates the requirements for benchmarks for obsolete end-of-course examinations that we're no longer doing. It also eliminates reference to scoring benchmarks on a specific vendor exam, which is the ACT. And then it requires early high school graduation requirements of future revisions that they be established in administrative regulations, which would then be promulgated by the Kentucky Board of Education.
Motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the bill by Representative Banta, a second by Representative Timoney. Any questions from any members? Seeing none, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker,
Yes.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski,
Yes.
Representative Decker,
Yes.
Representative Donahue, Representative Dossett,
Yes.
Representative Hart, Representative Koenig, Representative Lewis,
Yes.
Representative Massey, Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative Miller, Representative Gibbons Prunty,
Yes.
Representative Rayburn,
Yes.
Representative Riley,
Yes.
Representative Scott,
Yes.
Representative Timoney,
Yes.
Representative Tipton,
Yes.
Representative Weber, Representative White, Representative Wilner,
Yes.
Chair Huff.
Yes, Senate Bill 61 passes with the expression of opinion that the same should pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also for members, Senate Education, tomorrow we'll be hearing House bills and look forward to more House bills in the coming days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next bill for consideration is Senate Bill 83, an act relating to athletics. If the sponsors would please come to the table, and any guests you may have as well. There is a committee sub in the members' packet for this, and I would appreciate it if you all would just please explain the committee sub, the House substitute for us, please.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Robbie Mills. I'm State Senator from 4th District in Western Kentucky.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Ryan Dodson. I am a State Representative of the 73rd District.
And thank you, Madam Chair. David Walls with the Family Foundation.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just a couple of points, and then we'll explain the committee sub. Senate Bill 83 gives clear direction to KHSAA and Kentucky Post-Secondary Education Institutions on transgender female athletes. It protects opportunities for girls and young ladies to compete fairly in the sports of their choosing. Senate Bill 83 places in statute two simple sentences that clearly directs KHSAA to promulgate regulations or bylaws that provide that an athletic activity or sports designated as girls shall not be open to members of the male sex. It additionally states that for the purpose of determining eligibility to participate in an athletic activity or sport, that the sex of the student shall be determined by the student's biological sex as indicated on the student's certified birth certificate as originally issued at the time of birth or adoption. That pertains to grades 6 through 12. The House Committee Substitute number 2 is the committee substitute that we're wanting to adopt at this time. So if we could have a motion on the sub.
We have a motion on the sub by Representative Baker, a second by Representative Dossett.
Very good.
All in favor? All opposed? Committee sub is adopted.
Thank you. And I'll yield to Representative Dotson at this time to talk about the committee sub.
Yes, Senate Bill 83, as amended by House Committee Substitute 2, simply states that biological males cannot compete in an all-girls sports. Section 1 of paragraph G of KRS 156.070 defines how sex is determined with an original unedited birth certificate, and there are cases where those are not prevalent, whether they're parental issues at birth or in other states where they don't require it. And in those cases, with an unedited birth certificate, that we find that we can use a sworn affidavit from a physician, advanced practice registered nurse, a physician's assistant, or a chiropractor. Any individual can participate in a boys or co-ed team, but this legislation specifies girls' teams, and KHSAA doesn't have the purview to hear the challenges regarding biological males participating in an all-girls sports. Section 2 simply is post-secondary education that goes along with this. House Committee Substitute 1 had an enforcement measure, and the enforcement measure has been removed.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple of questions, and I ask that these be limited to clarification on the committee sub, since we have covered this issue prior. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was on that enforcement measure. What's the cause of action now that that enforcement measure has been removed? What's the incentive not to do this, to go against the new law?
That's something that we can discuss after committee and see what can be done. But as of right now, we don't have that measure in place.
Weigh in on that, yeah.
Appreciate the question. I would say without an enforcement measure, any female athlete who is impacted would have no legal recourse under this law. I would also just point out, as these laws have been passed increasingly across the nation, there are now 11 states that have passed Save Women's Sports laws. An overwhelming majority, 8 of the 11 bills that have passed, include both college and also include a legal remedy for female athletes who may be impacted. 2 of the states who were very early on and had passed versions of the bill that did not include those 2 protections, Tennessee and Alabama, are now actively considering legislation to, 1, add female college athletes and to also add a legal remedy to protect or provide an opportunity for a female athlete impacted by the law to have some recourse. So we believe it's vitally important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes, ma'am. I do have a question that I was not able to ask in the last committee meeting, not because I wasn't given an opportunity to ask, but because out of consideration for the children in the room, I did not ask it. So, if I may, what is the suicide rate for students who identify as transgender?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. If I may briefly comment?
Proceed.
Okay. Based on a study by the Trevor Project, 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. 52% of all transgender and non-binary young people think that it is better to be dead than to live with rejection, isolation, loneliness, bullying, and being targeted by politicians and activists pushing anti-trans legislation. I think we need to think about the lives of all our students as we do legislation, and I will be a no vote.
Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's not about the committee sub, but it is about information that we received today. So it was not something I was able to ask about in the last meeting, with your indulgence.
Proceed.
Thank you very much. We received a letter today signed by 150 businesses saying that they oppose anti-trans discrimination in the state. And I know that we strive to be a business-friendly state. And I just believe that enshrining discrimination into law is going to be very, very bad economically for the state of Kentucky, in addition to what my colleague already said about being bad for young people. Does that give you any pause or any concern at all that we're hurting the state economically as well as what we're doing to kids?
Yeah, I personally have seen states enact this legislation and haven't seen the economic downturn that that you're talking about. North Carolina had it. I think that you're going to see people voice their opinions, how they want to voice their opinions, but I don't see this affecting the state of Kentucky in the manner that that letter pointed out. Representative Johnson, you might.
Yeah, let's talk about fairness in women's sports for just a second. I don't want to see a single girl in our state go without an opportunity to win a title, to play a sport. When we see the physiological differences, and I've been holding back because I didn't want to go, we've labored that 2 weeks ago, but I can go into a plethora of reasons why this needs to be done. And so with that being said, there has to be something in place in our legislation that protects our female ladies in sports. So with that being said, anything you'd like to share?
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seem to have a problem. The KHSAA already have guidelines for high school, and you're coming up with guidelines for 6 through 12. Why, if I may ask, why are you putting 9 through 12 in this?
Well, the KHSAA has directives for high school, but some of those directives reach down into middle school. If you're familiar, I'm sure you are, Representative Miller, about several 7th and 8th grades and 9th graders play high school sports. So KHSAA also has regulations that deal with coaching, deal with coach training. Those all reach down into middle school. So it was an amendment in the Senate that was added that made this focus on beginning at 6th grade, because that's really where KHSAA, that's how far they reach down. In elementary school, in general, athletic decisions are made school to school, district to district, and that's where those decisions are made. So the KHSAA really only reaches down to 6th grade and up. And that's why we ended up putting that amendment on.
But their guidelines are for anyone that participates in high school sports. So I served on the board of the KHSAA, and I'm under the impression that we're trying to bring up legal themes. I think in the sub, I saw somewhere where the schools can be sued if something, is that true?
Not with this new committee sub. The enforcement measure has been taken away.
There was a second committee sub.
Yeah.
That was the second one?
Yeah, the legal enforcement has been taken away in the second sub.
Well, I'm just unhappy with the way that this is being handled, and I'm against it very much.
Representative Koenig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to compliment the wisdom of the sponsor with the new committee sub. We have regs, as mentioned earlier. Those regs have enforcement, which is if you have an ineligible player, which in this case we know this would fall under that category. You lose victories, you lose championships. I think that's adequate enforcement. Myself, we're spending a lot of money, adding a lot of money in our budgets for education. I talked to a insurance broker today who handles 60 different school districts. One of the providers, Liberty Mutual, informed all those districts that Liberty Mutual ensures that they're getting a 25% increase, in large part because of the various lawsuits that they get to endure nowadays because everyone's torn up and feels like they have to sue. I'd rather that money go not to higher insurance premiums and attorneys and insurance agents, although I love all those people, and go to educating our children, giving teachers raises, and that sort of stuff. The reason we're putting all that money in the budget. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We passed landmark tax reform, reducing our income tax percentage on the belief that we're going to draw a population to Kentucky, on the belief that we're going to attract big business. They're going to want to come here and bring big jobs. And I'm going to speak very, very concisely with this. I've been on bid packages before where we've attempted to attract big businesses. This type of legislation is questioned in those bid packages. This reflects poorly on the state of Kentucky. We voted for tax reform. This is a step in the opposite direction. A line will be drawn through Kentucky when it comes to site selection for big-time jobs. The list of corporations was massive, of companies that this is very, very important to. Mr. Wells, of the 10 states that have passed these types of bills, how many are currently tied up in court? All 10.
That's
37 states have adopted this. So that means 27 states are sitting there waiting to see what those 10 states are going to do. Our current circuit court, our current court ruling that will be weighing in on this, currently is in Tennessee. This case is before the Supreme Court in Tennessee, the Circuit Court in Tennessee. I said before, and I'll say it again, we need to pump the brakes on this. We need to table bills like this and see what the Supreme Court say.
I would just say there's actually 11 bills that have been passed. There have been a few challenges in court. It's my understanding, and I will double check on this, that there is only one of those laws that is currently not in enforcement right now. So the legal challenges have not been successful in stopping these common sense laws from protecting female athletes in their states. And a number of these states that have passed these laws have been doing very well economically because folks also look to see that common sense protections are in place in their state when they choose to do business there.
96% chance we're going to get sued when we pass this. I'm not sure I feel like spending money on lawsuits. I'd rather wait to see what Tennessee does, what happens in Tennessee, and then proceed at that point, because that way we have legal precedent to make a determination on a case like this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
May I speak? Representative Timoney, I appreciate your passion, but I totally disagree with your acumen when it comes to business come to Kentucky. We have what we need when doing tax reform to draw those into Kentucky, and this would have no impact in that.
Thank you. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Mills, Representative Dotson, aside from the calls of action, are there any other differences between this legislation with the committee sub and House Bill 23 that passed out of this committee earlier this session?
No, it's basically we married the same bills together.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I ask for a motion on Senate Bill 83 we have a motion by Representative Baker, a second by Representative Hart. Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker?
Yes.
Representative Banta?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Briefly explain my vote.
Briefly, please.
I will be a no vote because the students I'm protecting are transgender students and I am protecting them from their death.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Donahue? Representative Dossett?
Yes.
Representative Hart?
Yes.
Representative Koenig? Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massey?
Yes.
Representative McCool?
Yes.
Representative Miller?
No.
Representative Gibbons-Prunty?
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes.
I cast a yes vote for the young women's mental health who might be affected by this. So thank you. Yes.
Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Riley? Yes. Representative Scott?
Chairwoman, I'd like to explain my vote.
Proceed.
Thank you so much. I'm voting no on this bill because it's not common sense. It's not fairness in women's sports. Not one person in District 41 has asked me to support this bill. In fact, I've been asked by an overwhelming amount of people in District 41 to oppose this bill. They just want kids to play sports. That's it. Just let them play sports. I mean, this goes against the NCAA. This goes against Title IX. This is not the way forward for Kentucky. We should be taking care of and protecting our trans kids, and that's what my no vote is about, protecting our kids. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Representative Timoney?
No.
Representative Tipton?
Yes.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative White? Representative Wilner?
No.
Chair Huff?
Yes. Senate Bill 83 passes with the expression of opinion that the same should pass with the committee subattached thereto. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Madam Chair, may I record a yes vote on Senate Bill 61?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to record a yes vote on 61 as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to indicate my presence.
Chair Riley's here. Our last bill for consideration today is Senate Bill 265, an act relating to the Kentucky State University Board of Regents and declaring an emergency. The sponsor, Senator Givens, would please come to the table if you have any guest. I do not see him in the room. Please. Representative Tipton will stand in for Representative Givens. Senator Givens. I've demoted him, and that's what people think. Okay, thank you. And I know, I said what people think. Thank you, Representative Tipton, for coming to the table and presenting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Tipton, State Representative, House District 53. As you know, earlier this session, we passed out House Bill 250 dealing with Kentucky State University and the financial situation that's ongoing there. Senator Givens and I have been in communication about these issues. He reached out to me a few days ago to let me know they were going to be introducing Senate Bill 265. I actually met with the senator and representatives from the governor's office on Monday of this week. There is a committee sub, Madam Chair, if the committee would like to take action.
Motion on the sub.
We have a motion on the sub by Representative Gibbons-Prunty, a second by Representative Dossett. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Committee sub is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What Senate Bill 265 would do, as amended by the sub, as essentially would be a reconstitution of the Board of Regents of Kentucky State University. The way that there are some slight languages in change in languages in the sub from the original bill that was presented. It would have the Governor's Post-Secondary Education Nominating Committee submit 16 nominations by March 26, 22 of this year. It would have the Governor selecting 8 gubernatorial appointments to Kentucky State University Board of Regents, and current Kentucky State University board members may be considered. In the original language of the bill, the governor had to make these appointments by April 1st of 2022. In the committee sub, that appointment would have to be made by April 4th of 2022. There is additional changes in Section 2 of the committee sub. There is language that is not withstood. They're about line 18 of the committee sub. Current statute requires that there be representative representation on the basis of political affiliation. The limit of members being residents of the same county. Limit on institutional graduates who reside outside Kentucky. This due to the short nature and the urgency in getting a new board appointed, this limitation was not withstood. And it is an emergency clause. Since time is of the essence, there is an emergency clause on the legislation. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions on behalf of the Senate legislation?
Thank you. We do have one question at the moment. Representative Bojanowski.
Not to leave a bill unquestioned. Okay, so we did learn in committee that the board wasn't aware, or they were misinformed maybe, about the status. I mean, is this stating then that we're considering that the board was responsible, or can you help me understand a little more about replacing the board?
Again, the Senate has presented this bill, but I will reference former President Harry S. Truman had a placard on his desk that says the buck stops here. And I have personally reviewed 4 years of minutes of the KSU board. I have heard from many stakeholders from KSU board, and in the current situation, the Senate has recommended, and I agree, we need a change in leadership. It's not to discredit, it's not to disparage anybody that's on that board. They were in that situation when this took place. There have been issues in the past, and the Senate just felt like they're in the process of selecting a new president, and we really need, they're looking for fresh leadership. And that's my opinion of why this bill's been brought forward.
And I do have one brief follow-up.
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And so the other question is, how will this impact the new president search?
Currently, it's ongoing. You never assume, but I would assume that this legislation passes. You're going to have a new board come in. That new board's going to want to be involved in that presidential search. The governor's executive order that was put in place last summer gives CPE direction. I think House Bill 250, if we can get that passed, also is going to give CP additional direction. I believe it will delay that. And Senator Givens, I'm trying to pinch hit for you, my friend. But the question was, is how will this legislation, the new board, impact the search for a new president at KSU? So.
Well, first, let me apologize to the chairwoman and members of the committee. I apologize for being late. We were in joint leadership, and the alarm was sounded that, Senator Givens, you're supposed to be in House Ed, and I told to the conferees there, the discussion that was going on in joint leadership, I said, listen, all of you are important, but the folks in House Ed are more important today, right now, at this moment, than you are. So thanks for standing in. Thanks for your consideration of the legislation, and specific to the question and the sequence. As we've looked at what you've sent to us in House Bill 250, this is a companion piece of legislation that, in my opinion, needs to be passed as quickly as possible, and I appreciate the expediency with which you're addressing it. Once we get the Board of Regents back in place, reconstituted, clean slate, but all the candidates and or current members are eligible to be back on that board, we want to give the governor full latitude to press the reset button. Then we're going to entrust this group of folks with the ability to do the rest of what's involved in the turnaround, which is the legislation you sent to us, along with some changes we're likely going to be making and sending back to you. Specific to the presidential search, that is in motion now. It is a question of conversation in 250, House Bill 250, about whether we will pause that search or continue that search. We haven't arrived at a final decision. This does not impact what we do in 250 specific to the presidential search, and as it stands today, that search is still ongoing.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Senator, I'm trying to see what the difference is between the original bill and the sub. So if you could just tell me what was taken out in the sub, that would be helpful.
Certainly glad to do that, and was involved with Representative Tipton in conversation with the governor's office specifically about contents of the sub. We changed the date. I know we changed the date was one item of change.
April 1 to April 4.
We moved it from April 1 to April 4 for the governor to make those appointments, just those few days, add some more time. And then we notwithstood some constraints as it related to political affiliation and geography, so that the governor has full latitude across the state of Kentucky with the changes we've made to gather the very best members that he can gather for purposes of constituting this board. This is a one-time notwithstanding, so please understand that as we notwithstand it for purposes of the KSU board, this is only a one-time notwithstanding on those political limitations and those geographic limitations.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I need a motion on the.
Motion.
We have a motion by Representative Banta, a second by Representative Rayburn. With that, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker?
Yes.
Representative Banta?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
I'm a little bit torn here. I trust my colleague over here at your right hand very deeply. I'm going to pass right now and learn a little bit more. I'm apprehensive of complete changing of things. We do that in education and the thought that it'll make our schools better, and I'm not sure that it does. So I'd like to reflect on this a little bit more, but thank you.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Donahue? Representative Dossett?
Yes.
Representative Hart?
Yes.
Representative Koenig?
Yes.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massey? Yes. Representative McCool?
Yes.
Representative Miller? Yes. Representative Gibbons-Prunty?
Yes.
Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Riley?
Briefly explain my vote.
Briefly.
I think it's extremely important to the Commonwealth of Kentucky that Kentucky State University be successful. And I think the appointment of Dr. Thompson was a good first step, and I think this board change will be a good second step. So thank you, and I vote yes.
Representative Scott?
Pass.
Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Tipton?
Yes.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative White? Representative Wilner?
Pass for today.
Chair Huff?
Yes. Senate Bill 265 passes with the expression of opinion that the same should pass with a committee substitute attached thereto.
Madam Chair, thank you. Members of the committee, thank you. And please again accept my sincere apologies for delaying the committee. Thank you, ma'am.
We're glad you could join us. That's fine. Seeing no further business before the committee, to have a motion to adjourn, a second?